All right, we are rocking and rolling here. Hey everyone, how's it going? Look at my glamorous new backdrop here. As someone who makes videos online about archaeology, obviously I am confronted on a regular basis with the ideas of Graham Hancock. And if you've been following my channel, following my videos, it's not going to be a surprise to you that I totally disagree with his conclusions about ancient history, prehistory, and I thought I'd make a video about why. Now, this video won't be a debunking video. I'm not going to debunk his ideas any more than I could debunk the idea that there's a chocolate teapot floating around the sun. It's up to Hancock to prove his ideas, and I wish him all the best, but I don't think he is going to succeed because of these just sort of fundamental objections that I have to his ideas. His ideas almost defy logic and reason, basically. So I do not think he will be successful in that endeavor. If you are a fan of Mr. Hancock, I hope you stick around and listen. And maybe you'll agree, maybe you'll disagree. It doesn't matter as long as you watched the advert before this video. All right, so before I start, it's only fair to clearly state what it is that Graham Hancock believes. In November 2019, the Society for American Archaeology published a sort of rebuttal to Graham Hancock's new book, America Before. And Graham Hancock considered it a very grave personal attack, rather than an attack on his ideas. But in it, archaeologist Jeb J. Card gave this a summary of Hancock's ideas. Attempting to critique America Before, the Key to Earth's Lost Civilization by Graham Hancock, using the criteria of professional archaeology, is doomed to failure, as his goals are outside the materialist practice of scientific archaeology. In a nutshell, Hancock argues that an ancient civilization of the Pleistocene emerged in North America that was not based on material technology, but on psychic, spiritual knowledge. It became a global sea-based society comparable with the late pre-industrial British Empire. These Ice Age Americans, parentheses, spoiler Atlanteans, parentheses, foresaw a cosmic disaster and spread mimetic seeds of sacred knowledge of geometry, astronomy, and the other world and how souls may navigate it around the world. After this civilization was destroyed by impact events from a comet during the Younger Dryas, these advanced people came to be remembered as magicians and gods. Seeking this knowledge today is a path to truly understanding reality and the spiritual elements denied by materialist science. Now, you would think that Jeb Carr just absolutely roasted Hancock there. It sounds like a ridiculous idea. But in response to this, Hancock wrote on his website, "Card's process of my arguments is fair, and in general I'd say that his analysis of my work and its function is much more carefully thought through than that of any of the other contributors." So, if Graham Hancock considers that a fair summary of his ideas, and he put that on his website, I see no reason why I cannot use that as a fair summary of his ideas and critique it with my following objections. I mean, that is quite the claim, isn't it? That a society on the scale of the pre-industrial British Empire existed deep into the Stone Age and that it has been entirely ignored or missed by archaeology. That is quite the claim, and I have a bunch of objections to that.
Objection 1. Where's the stuff?
Let's start with the idea that it's not based on material culture, but was somehow spiritual or psychic in nature. I fundamentally, this is my opinion, I fundamentally disagree that such a society could exist. However enlightened I am, I still need to eat. I still need a tool to open a tin of beans. That tool may well survive in the archaeological record. Hancock believes that these people were capable of sailing the earth. So all of the industry around that, all of the metal working, all of the infrastructure that goes into creating such a navy, I feel like would leave a very obvious archaeological trace. Some of it would have survived, a lot of it would have survived, and a society on the scale that he is suggesting, on the scale of the pre-industrial British Empire, just on the cusp of the American Revolution, that would leave millions upon millions of artifacts behind. Absolutely millions. Look how much crap the Romans left behind. It would not be possible for archaeologists to hide or ignore evidence of such a civilization. We would have discovered it in the earliest days of archaeology. Open a trench. Oh, there's a whole city here. How could we possibly ignore that? Pull the other one, Hancock.
Objection 2. What about rivers?
Objection number 2. Where did these people live? I know Hancock and his supporters make a big hullabaloo about rising sea levels, and that is the reason we don't have the evidence for this civilization. I mean, first of all, straight from the off, we do underwater archaeology, and the stuff we find is amazing. It's incredible. For example, the Uluburun, I think I'm saying it correctly, Uluburun shipwreck off the coast of Turkey, an almost perfectly preserved Bronze Age vessel. If there were entire cities under the Mediterranean, I believe we would have found them. If there are entire cities off the coasts of these nations, we would have found them. We find Mesolithic and Paleolithic artifacts dredging up Doggerland off the coast of UK, but we can't find a whole civilization, whole advanced civilization. I don't buy it. Furthermore, more fundamentally though, if this society sailed the earth, they'd have sailed upriver, right? They're still humans we're talking about here. They still needed to drink fresh water. I can't believe that they would sail from the Americas all the way to, Papua New Guinea, the Middle East, these places, but they wouldn't sail upriver. They wouldn't have colonized the interior of the USA. That's a load of bollocks. Hancock is one of those people that believes the Sphinx is much older than is suggested by modern archaeology. Again, I disagree with that, but doesn't matter. The point is the Sphinx is further upriver, so where's the city of the people who built it? It just isn't there, man. It just isn't there. But wait, Stefan, I hear you commenting, Stefan, the evidence is everywhere, man. You just need an open mind. Well, I disagree with your open mind. To use the analogy of the Romans again, I don't need an open mind to see the Colosseum. It's right in front of my face. And if this civilization was truly on the scale that Hancock suggests, it'd be everywhere. Also, somehow, this cataclysm that wiped them out, the Younger Dryas, wiped out every shred of evidence of this civilization, yet left, the evidence of Paleolithic hunter-gatherers intact. It left, communities that are on the cusp of the Neolithic Revolution intact. And all over the world, we have evidence of life in the Younger Dryas, Paleolithic life. But somehow this civilization is wiped off the map. I don't believe it. You gotta get up earlier in the morning to catch Stefan with some bollocks like that. Don't believe it.
Objection 3. What's for dinner?
Food. Alright, this is probably my most fundamental objection to his ideas. We have no evidence of crop domestication or animal domestication, either genetically or in the archaeological record, before the Younger Dryas. None at all. So what did these people eat? Some plants that have just not survived into the modern world. I find that ridiculous to believe. He also has written and said publicly that this civilization is responsible for spreading agriculture around the world. Well, I have a huge objection to that. We got potatoes, tomatoes, wheat, bread, Bourbon biscuits. All the fundamental foods of human civilization were geographically isolated until, the Renaissance, until the early modern period when, the Atlantic was crossed successfully and continually for the first time, and the world was truly connected. Am I supposed to believe that a globe-spanning civilization did not see the benefit of having a wide variety of crops available to them? That they still would want to geographically isolate crops? That the they're based in the Americas, so this colony of theirs that went to the Middle East to found Göbekli Tepe didn't think about bringing a tomato with them. They didn't enjoy a humble pickled pepper. Please. A society that set out with the specific intention of teaching agriculture would not keep crops geographically isolated. I mean, what a load of bollocks, I say. Bollocks. The current understanding offered by mainstream archaeology is much more reasonable and really well supported by the evidence. Domestication of crops and animals, agriculture, took thousands upon thousands of years to slowly develop in different areas around the world. It was a really complicated interaction of climate and plants and people, and that the reason it took off after the Younger Dryas is a consistently warm and stable climate, which was lacking before the Younger Dryas. So there's lots of evidence to support that idea. Very reasonable. Psychic gurus traveling around and not giving out tomatoes. Nonsense. Tomatoes are delicious. There's no way they wouldn't have brought one with them. It's bollocks.
Objection 4. Fancy a shag.
This is similar to my previous point. The shagging. This civilization traveled the earth, all the corners of the earth, teaching us agriculture, astrology, mythology. You'd think they would have shagged some of the local people whilst they were there. You'd think we would see greater genetic mixing in the archaeological record, yet we don't. That's obviously not to say we know everything. The more we learn, the more complicated the peopling of the planet becomes. The more we understand about that process, the more we realize how complicated it was. But this large-scale society setting out around the world would have left a genetic trace, especially because they were from the Americas. And in the real world of mainstream archaeology, mainstream genetics, Native Americans are quite genetically distinct because of an extended period of geographic isolation. So it really would be quite an obvious signal we would see, and yet it's not there. And as ridiculous as it is to think that they wouldn't have brought a tomato with them, it is ridiculous to think that when they arrived, wherever they arrived at, they didn't shag someone. Pull the other one. Pull the other one. I know someone's going to comment, oh, but there's this one group in the Amazon with the links to Australia, blah, 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 blah. Well, that is not good evidence for what Graham Hancock suggests. I invite you to read the rebuttal by Jennifer Raff in the edition of the magazine that I mentioned at the start. Again, it's like the Roman analogy. If this truly happened, the evidence would be everywhere. We wouldn't have to find it in just one isolated group in the Amazon. It'd be everywhere. It would be everywhere.
Objection 5. Do you even meddle, bro?
Alright, last objection to this. When did this all happen? So this civilization allegedly ended at the end of the Younger Dryas. Fantastic. Brilliant. Great for Graham. But when did it start? Where was this civilization's progression out of the Stone Age? Which part of the Stone Age does Graham Hancock believe in? I mean, are we going to say, more than 35,000 years ago were Neanderthals and Homo floresiensis and the Denisovans taking part? I find that a pretty ridiculous idea. In an interview on YouTube, Hancock alludes to Denisovans being involved. He talked about how the genetic legacy of Denisovans still lives on in Asia and also in the Americas. I haven't fact-checked that, but that would be irrelevant anyway because Native Americans did originally reach the continent through Asia. So it's no evidence of a trans-Pacific connection. But also the idea that Denisovans might have been involved in some way is ridiculous. Think about how little we know about the Denisovans. Just a few fragments of bone. We only knew about them because of genetic testing. Before that, they would have just been labeled a Neanderthal. So to even suggest that we know anything about the Denisovans is pretty controversial. To say that they were part of a trans-Pacific network, or to at least allude to that, is quite frankly stupid. It's stupid. That's a stupid thing for me to believe. I'd have to turn off half my brain. Anyway, point is, whatever age you say that they left the Stone Age, whatever age you pick, and whatever location around the world you say they did it in, the archaeological record will say for that area that there was already people there living a Stone Age lifestyle. This idea that they sank beneath the waves is just a cop-out to talk about, because this idea that they sank beneath the waves is just a cop-out and a way to excuse the fact that the evidence for the civilization just isn't anywhere. It's nowhere. It's nowhere.
Conclusion.
All right, conclusione. So those are just some basic-ass objections and questions to the ideas of Graham Hancock. Like I said, I feel like his ideas defy reason, defy logic. It's not just about keeping an open mind. It's sort of willfully ignoring the evidence that already exists. I don't believe my objections and questions will ever be answered. I don't believe they can be. To me, the civilization is an obvious fantasy. Now, that's not to say we won't learn more about prehistory. Of course we will. No discipline has changed its ideas more than archaeology. Or at least you'd be hard pushed to find one. Archaeology is always in a state of change. We're always learning new things. Graham Hancock says everyone's dogmatic and stuck in their thinking. He couldn't be more wrong. Anyone who has an understanding of archaeology really could not possibly say that. The opposite is true. It's honestly hard to keep up with all the new information that's just constantly being unearthed all around the world by fantastic and intelligent archaeologists. That's what makes archaeology so interesting. We're always learning something new. An unknown civilization of seafaring Native Americans on the scale of the British Empire that taught the entire world maths and farming and science, but for some reason didn't like making tools and geographically isolated crops and didn't have sex with anyone. And, had a key to understanding the afterworld, the afterlife, the other world. Give me a fucking break, guys. That's what I've got to say about it. See ya.